Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a podcast brought to you by the Triad Network. This podcast is designed to share trending topics occurring within the world and our communities and bring them a behavioral and mental health perspective.
Welcome to Behavioral Health Today, a Triad production. I'm your host, Dr. Graham Taylor. Today's show is part of our clinician series, and I love these shows because we get to take you into the therapeutic work itself, allowing you to get a sense of and an appreciation for what actually occurs within the therapy session, along with an understanding of the various therapeutic techniques and strategies and constructs that take place between therapists and patients. Ideally, this series is to get you to have a demystified understanding of the therapeutic process and provide you with an understanding of how life-changing psychotherapy and mental health can really be. I'm not only excited about this show being a part of our clinician series, but I'm also excited and happy to have a returning guest, Dr. Neha Sangwan. Neha is the CEO and founder of Intuitive Intelligence, which is focused on empowering individuals and organizations with effective communication tools. Neha is also an internal medicine physician, engineer, author, speaker, and communication expert, and now consults with top organizations like Google, American Express, and the American Heart Association. She has shared her work across 3 TED stages, authored 2 books, and developed a comprehensive employee accountability program that connects the dots between job satisfaction, health, and performance. We're excited to have Neha with us today to discuss burnout, reconnecting with the meaning of life, and her book, Powered by Me, From Burnout to Fully Charged at Work and in Life. Neha, welcome back to our show. It's so nice to have you here.
Oh, good to be here.
Nice to have you. Well, as I said in our introduction, this is part of our clinician series where we get to kind of go a little bit deeper into the work that those that are on our show are doing. And we had a great first show together. And you nicely laid out for us the various dynamics around stress and burnout and the trends you're seeing in the workplace. And for those of you who are listeners today, if you've missed that show, I would highly recommend and encourage you to go back and listen to it. It was just a very enjoyable show, but it has some really great information that Neha was imparting to us. But Neha, as we come into today, I know that Intuitive Intelligence works to optimize leadership and team performance through collaborative excellence, really, effective communication, and really trying to optimize well-being. And in today's show, what I'd like us to learn from you and more about from you is the content of your book and the ways that it comes into your consultative work and just the ways you think about stress, burnout, and optimizing our health. Could we start there?
That's a great place to start. Sure. And I love what you said also about intuitive intelligence because, when we go in and do this with organizations, I think what sometimes people forget is that it's all sitting in a me, we world
Yes.
paradigm. So you can't just optimize leadership and, create
Right.
cultures, caring cultures for people without individual accountability, without team dynamics, and without leadership. So
Yes.
I just would like broaden that. And then, yes, it's about communication, relationships, business strategy, how you do that, and their well-being, mental, emotional, physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual well-being.
Yeah.
So when you talk about my latest book, which is Powered by Me,
Yeah.
From Burned Out to Fully Charged at Work and in Life, I go into the me deeply because it seems that we're having this global epidemic of burnout,
Hmm.
overwhelm, and people don't know where to focus. So what they do is they say, it's the company's policies. And then that's world. Remember how I said me, we, world? Well, that's world. And then when that happens, something gets changed, but things aren't better.
Yeah.
Someone else will say, yeah, but it's toxic dynamics in the workplace. That's we. And what I'm talking about in this book is me,
Hmm.
the individual.
Hmm.
Because let's start at the foundation. First of all, let me be really clear. Burnout is nobody's fault.
No.
But there is an interplay that goes on when a being is in a system of toxic, stressful, dysfunctional culture and in a system of policies that don't actually allow for innovation, communication, whatever it is, right? So we're going to zero in on this book and start with what few people are talking about, which is me.
I
So
love that.
powered by me. All right. So powered by me is really about what I learned. So in the previous podcast, we talk about like what is burnout and, kind of go through a little bit more of the nitty gritty around it. So if people are like, oh, I don't know how she's defining it, et cetera, that is going to be really good for you to go back and listen to. Now, what we do is I figured out after burning out myself, as well as working with tens of thousands of clinicians, patients, companies, all of their employees, that really you can narrow burnout down to where you are. Let me show you on the front of this, where you
Nice.
are burned out to fully charged
Got it.
can be found and discovered, because we got to customize it to each individual, by where you have a net gain or a net drain of energy on a physical, mental, emotional, social, I'm tipping into that we piece, and spiritual level. So that's what everybody had in common, even though every single person that shows up to get our help
Yeah.
gets there as uniquely as their fingerprint.
Mhm.
But if we can figure out where they're having a net gain or a net drain, the first thing we do is they don't have to feel overwhelmed anymore because they know where to focus.
Yes.
We can actually support them because we know specifically for this person in front of us, what tools are they going to need? So that's kind of the overview of it. And then we can go into each of those energy sections, if that's something you think would be helpful.
I think it'd be very helpful. But what I like with your start, and I'm just appreciating it even just a little bit more, powered by me. That's not by accident. There's
Well,
something inherently empowering to recognize that I can power things through myself. And oftentimes, when I'm doing couples therapy, and I think, a system is a system, whether it's our family of origin, whether it's our cultural backgrounds, whether it's our, our marriage now, whether it's our businesses, systems are systems. And they all have their own unique, inherent, and elegant dysfunction. But oftentimes we get stuck in that. And when I'm working with a couple, I'll say there's always in every relationship two I's and a we. And they usually come to see me when they're all bust up here. And they want to say, well, they've got to do this, they've got to do this. And it's always about pointing, and everybody's giving up their power, is what you're saying. So the first thing we do is we mine down inside of ourselves. We go to
you
the
bet.
I, and
You
we
bet.
understand what is happening within me. And if I can get understanding in that, and you're doing the same thing with yourself, what a self-respective process, but also a shared honoring process, that I'm understanding myself and my eyes. And now we can come back up to the we with a whole new level of understanding. And it's not about blaming anymore. It's about, what am I bringing to this moment? And now I'm not dependent upon you to get it right so that I'm okay. I give my power away, and I stay in that victim mode. Don't necessarily like that word, but it captures something for us, that
You
I'm
bet.
giving something away that I actually have within me that I can power by me if I go to the I first and then come back up into the we with a much more informed understanding of myself. And that's what I love that you're saying here around
And
the
I think
me
the big
world.
thing here is when you're doing me, we world,
Yeah.
not to confuse today's world where me becomes narcissism.
No.
So where it's like, oh, it's all about me, and so even the me, the reason it's powered and the empowered experience is because
Yes.
we're talking about personal responsibility, personal accountability. How do I shift into the I in a way where I am asking myself, how did I show up in this interaction that contributed to the outcome I don't like?
The interesting thing you're saying in that is actually depression, anxiety comes out of narcissism at times,
Mhm.
because it's so much so that I need other people to fill my bucket. Basically, I'm dependent upon others to show up in a certain way so that I'm okay, versus the I piece that says exactly what you just mentioned. And that's actually, there's a curative factor to accountability and responsibility. It
Mhm.
actually gets me out of a place that I think I'm only going to be okay if, instead of what you're saying, well, what if I can power some of these things by me? So I'd love to have you just kind of build upon this and continue down what you're talking about.
Sure. So this twist, right? Powered by me. And let's just talk for a minute about the title. So the reason I named it this was for several reasons.
Okay.
One is I thought, how is the next generation coming in who are going to be, by the way, Gen Z will be 30% of the workforce by 2030.
Mm,
How are they going to relate to this too? How do I make this timeless? Well, I don't think there's anybody who doesn't want more power in their life,
right.
number one. Number two, we're living in an increasingly digital and AI world, and
Yeah.
that's a different kind of power and technology. And you need to plug in your devices to get power. There's an accountability. A device can't just keep working and us not take care of it. And so what I wanted was, what's the word that across generations we're really going to want?
Mm,
Power. We all want our own agency. And what is the way that we can relate it to technology? And that's power and the next generation. So that's that. Then the accountability, the personal accountability is a big piece of this power. And it's that making that shift
yeah.
from the outcome I don't like to how I can get back into being powered by me.
Yeah.
So that, because you know this with every system and every couple, when it is in sync, in synergy, when values are aligned, it becomes synergistic power that one person alone cannot create. It's so much bigger than the individual, two individuals, right?
Yeah.
Their combination is magic.
You bet. I think there is a certain synergy around that, and we're kind of better together. Or there's a African term, umbuto. I am because we are,
Yeah.
and this whole idea of what we can become and be. It's just I want to park on something just for a moment here. You're talking about this generation right now, and I want to talk about this gently, and I want to talk about this sensitively, but I also want to name some things that are important. There was this guy doing some research. From the research is showing that Gen Z and millennials have the highest rate of stress and burnout. More personal conflicts are reported, and roughly about 75% experience some form of burnout, is what the research is showing. This guy decided to use our modern day Oracle Chat GPT. And he said, why is this the case? And he said the GPT fed out to him. It's important to note that claims about psychological fragility among college students should be approached with caution, as they can be influenced by cultural narratives and media coverage rather than actual data. And I think that there are folks out there right now that are kind of the puppeteers around things that are really stirring up some things that create unnecessary stress with a deeper agenda in place. And there's also another piece that spat out was changes in parenting and cultural norms, such as a greater emphasis on protecting children from discomfort and failure, which may lead to decreased resilience and coping skills. So basically, we're talking about an impaired emotional immune system. And you're a physician. Our immune systems are incredibly powerful that fight off and ward off all of these things. But our emotional immune system, if not built up, including with accountability and responsibility, makes one susceptible, doesn't it, to experience burnout and stress. What you're suggesting is the way out of this. And just a little quick side note, and I think I'm maybe becoming the evangelist for this. There's a cool Netflix series called Blue Zones that talk about these zones throughout the world that have people living to be centurions at or over 100 years old. And what are they doing? This guy does an awesome job of talking about all the factors that go into it. And, they're not the biggest, strongest people, but they do these things that allow them to have these really lovely, lovely lives. They're happy, they're smiling, they're active, they're engaged, they're social, there's music, there's dancing, good food, all of these things that come together. The cool part is that these are replicable things. We can all do these things. It's not like just for I'm sure there's some genetic piece to it for sure. But one of the things that was, I think, could have been emphasized more, but it still came out in all the stories. They all went through some adversity.
Mm.
And they went through something, whether it was a war they went through, some, their land being taken over. They all went through some adversity as a group. And there's something about a hardiness. We know the research around resilience and hardiness that comes out that says if you go through something like that, everything else is kind of not that bad. My mom was in World War II in Aberdeen, Scotland. She got shot at by the Germans. She was in a bomb shelter, fitted for a mask when she was a wee little girl, had to have a suitcase already packed and ready to go. And she would watch her mom go out at night to make sure that everybody in the neighborhood had their shades drawn so they didn't have any light that the Germans could see it and bomb Aberdeen, which had all the gasoline supplies and et cetera. That's hard times. But there's a resilience that comes out of that and a hardiness that comes out of that and a certain responsibility and accountability that you're talking about that take us away from our narcissism which makes us, depressed, anxious, burned out, and puts it back into our lap. So that was a long way around the barn to kind of hold up this idea of there is a place for an emotional immune system being built
Yeah.
up. And how do we do that?
I have so many thoughts about what you've just said. Okay. I'm going to start with me mentioning narcissism versus accountability and you building on that. I think what I really want to be clear is I think because gaslighting has gotten such a big highlight lately, I want to be clear that I don't think a majority of the world are narcissists. I think that many people at certain times can show narcissistic tendencies
Hmm.
or have some qualities, right? So I
Sure.
wouldn't blanket them
That's when it
narcissist.
becomes a disorder. So
Yeah.
when,
So
when it becomes a clinical case, so this much like we
yes,
can all be depressed, but then we're clinically depressed. But
that's right.
narcissism it is hallmark and foundation. It's those that are fragile.
Yeah. Yeah. And often, right, insecure, needing attention, all sorts of. All right. So the second thing that you spoke about was the elevated stress and burnout that is occurring in the next generation, and that you looked on Chat GPT and you got information. So this is reminding me of earlier this year. I went to the TED Vancouver, the main
Mm,
TED conference. By the way,
mm,
40th year running. Amazing.
that's so cool.
It was phenomenal. And here's the important thing to remember about AI. AI is only as good as the data it can pull from the internet.
Mhm.
So when you think about the internet as something we initially created to connect all of us, but in many instances has become an anonymous way to shoot darts at people, give negative comments, do all sorts of things. If we don't start paying attention to the base of information that we're using to get our information,
That's right.
we may be getting skewed information.
Mhm.
Okay. Now, AI has some really good points, which is I do think that this generation did not play outside and tumble like we did
Mhm.
growing up. They did not have conflict with, play dates with people like the neighborhood gang like we did. And so they have had less exposure to conflict, and they have had themselves with a device,
Mm.
with a website in between them and another device and another person. That's how many layers there are between real live conversation. So
Good
whether you're
points.
gaming, whether you're texting, whether you're whatever, they are so used to a break and a pause and their ability not to have to react in real time. So to
Good
them,
points.
conflict in real time or live meetings or in-person exchanges feels like the equivalent of a tiger chasing them.
That's a great way to put it. So there's almost a fight or flight response.
There is.
Really
And
good points.
their lack of exposure to it, it would almost be like, yes, there's an immune system that fights against invaders. The way I think of emotions is more about building a muscle, an
Yes,
emotional muscle.
absolutely.
Because there's nothing we need to ward off. Okay. There's no emotion that we should be fighting against. If it's grief, if it's jealousy, if it's elation, if it's joy, if it's whatever it is, all emotions are data telling us they're kind of like the blue dot on the GPS system saying you are here now. It is data where it's like giving us information of how we're experiencing our life in this moment.
And it's the meaning that we've assigned to that that we're not always conscious about. That you could have
That's
one
right.
meaning to the same thing, I could have another, and
Totally.
both are right,
Yep.
but they're not necessarily true.
So here we go. What if your producer, Peter, asks us to both go bungee jumping? Okay. That's data coming in. One of us, not me, would be really excited and say, "Oh my God," and get like heart racing, adrenaline, whatever's going.
Right.
And I would say, "Oh my," and go into nervous, anxious, right? And so, same data, heart might be racing in both of us. We might feel a rush of energy, both of us. But the thoughts we have, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. And you might be thinking, of course, I'm making it up. Wow, I would love to do that. That
I
would
get to
be
fly.
incredible. I get to
Yeah.
fly.
Yeah.
So, yes, the data that we get can be the same,
It's neutral.
yet the thoughts we have can determine how we feel about this experience.
That's right.
So that's the clearest way that I could delineate that. And then it's not about one of them being right or wrong, which you said. It's more about, oh, what is my anxiety? Tell me. Oh, what is your excitement? Tell you about where you are and how you're experiencing your life in this moment.
Right.
Okay. So definitely that. So I call it an emotional muscle. And
Mhm.
it's like if you or I had never done a push-up and suddenly someone wanted us to do push-ups,
Mhm.
our muscle groups would have no muscle memory. They wouldn't even know what that is. And I would probably fall straight to the floor when someone asked me to go down, okay, on a push-up. Now, if that is the same thing that we're doing to our children, which is they had never had conflict
Yeah.
in a meaningful way in real time, or they have figured out ways to avoid it, run to the room, get on their devices, tune out. I don't know what it is, put on their headphones, start blasting music, gaming, tune out, go on the internet. I don't know what it is, but they've got their ways. Then, and maybe they were babysat by devices. Maybe they didn't actually have a real human babysitter who would play games with them and argue with them.
Well, you're also talking about a piece here that's really critical, where the parents are so extraordinarily necessary to help kids, through I mean, we don't have a frontal lobe until we're in our mid-20s. Teenagers, we have a little bit more, obviously, but our parents early on, they are our frontal lobes: planning, reasoning, judgment, logic, organization. Parents explain these things and help kids develop tools and get equipped for these kinds of moments. But in the absence of that, or parents being busy, or maybe being babysat, like you're saying, they never develop some of these skills. The good news is, though, that emotional muscle, you can develop it. It's there to do. It's part of our emotional IQ. Those are all things that we can develop, which is very hopeful.
It's our
Yes.
job now as companies, as
Yes.
communities, as like organizations now, because it
Yes.
didn't happen in families, it didn't happen in education. We have graduated an entire generation here
Yeah.
that is coming out without these skills. Now, I would argue not many of us had them either, but the world was moving slower. We talked directly to people. We had other parts of this. The world wasn't moving as fast as AI.
Yeah.
And so we had space and time
Yes.
to kind of figure this out, and we got to learn through trial and error. Now things are moving really fast. So I love your thought on the Netflix Blue Zones, and this is adversity and resilience. So here's what I want to say. I have this philosophy that nothing's wrong. There's nothing actually wrong about it. None of it. It's that our souls. Now, this is coming from a doctor, okay? Because I've been on so much of the front end of life when life comes in, and on the back end of life when I help usher people to the other side,
Mhm.
right? And so my conversations with new mothers and humans whose lives have been cut short or are at the end of their life and are transitioning out, I call it life school.
Mm.
We are all here. This is just my belief
Mhm.
that we are all here, souls in a body. And the reason souls and energy are in a body are so that we can play on Earth and with each other and explore, gather data. And so each of us has a unique soul life curriculum, the lessons in our life school that are meant for us. But each sibling in a family has a different curriculum. So when a parent says, why aren't you like your brother? Why don't you do this like your sister? Well, let me tell you why. Because this soul is unique. They might look like each other, they might be twins, but they've got their blueprint, their soul curriculum is completely different and yet to be revealed to themselves and everybody else. And so if they are completely different and they act completely different, it is true that each one of them is supposed to learn something different.
You bet.
And so when we don't develop our emotional muscle, that we've been talking about, we may avoid the lessons we need to learn about conflict. We may have been a soul who came here and was supposed to be in this experience and not get that growing up
Mhm.
and recognize the pain of not knowing it.
Yes.
I don't know. So, what it is like the way that I can meet all these people and I can meet them knowing that I am strong, resourceful, and capable, and so are they,
Yeah.
is when I believe that they are these strong, resourceful, capable people who are in a body to gather data, enjoy life with each other and on Earth and explore. And they have met me at some point in time because I'm supposed to listen and be present for them on their next level of growth to graduate from this life lesson in life school.
We'll be right back after word from our sponsor.
Whether you're a longtime or first-time listener to Behavioral Health Today, you're probably familiar with Triad, the company that brings you this podcast. But you may not know that Triad also hosts a community for current and aspiring behavioral and mental health professionals, featuring trending content and education and career resources, all for free. If you are a behavioral or mental health professional, or you're studying to become one, join more than 80,000 people on Triad by claiming your free professional account today. Visit us at hellotriad.com/BHT. That's hellotriad.com/BHT and join the Triad community today.
This is such a beautiful thing you're saying. I love this. I think you're also, and if I could kind of ping off of that piece, part of a parent's job is to help our children learn the lessons they need to learn. But part of it is also helping them understand what in their life school, their curriculum is really about, what their inherent gifts and skills and talents and abilities are that are uniquely theirs. That if they can learn what those are, what their bent is, if you will, what they're equipped with just inherently naturally, and help them develop that, they're going to have a wonderful life playing with those things, like you're saying, and having a really fun time kind of gathering the data around that. And then what's really interesting is that this goes back to where you started today. If we can take the kind of a strong and resourceful and capable person here with their gifts and skills and abilities. And then there's another person over here with their unique gifts, skills, and abilities that's strong, resourceful, and capable. And we have that synergy piece that you talked about earlier coming together, that we're better together than we would be individually. And if I can bring all that I'm equipped with, and I'm going to get joy from and fulfillment from expressing and manifesting, and other people are going to benefit from what I bring, that's a cool win-win. And then we get to do it together in a shared way, the synergistic approach. That's exciting.
Okay, I'm going to build on this because I just wrote down another idea.
Yeah, go.
Yes, our job is to help them with their gifts and their skill sets and figuring all of that out.
Mhm.
And also, I believe that each of us gets to make a choice. I happen to do engineering and medicine and
Mhm.
executive coaching. Okay. So, because I've now decided that I'm going to go into learn conscious capitalism, apply this to CEOs, businesses, company wide wellness programs, the whole thing, that is how I am choosing
Mhm.
to express my life school curriculum.
I
What
love it.
the lessons I learned, I could have done it as a policewoman. I could have done it as a teacher. I could have so the choices I make are just what lesson I want to learn next. Do I break up with someone I'm dating? Do I get divorced? Do I stay in my relationship? Any choice I'm making is just going to reveal what the next lesson I'm ready to learn is.
Yeah. So
Okay.
there's volition in that.
Yep.
And there's also a certain accountability and responsibility that we get to exercise in that too.
Exactly. And then the second piece here is our job is also not to coddle our children and save them from disappointment or our each other. Because if they're ever going to find their true purpose, it to me, it is born of following your bliss and following your heartbreak. The reason it's both of those things is because those are the milestones and events and experiences in your life that moved you.
Mm.
And it matters. It matters whether you're moved and excited and elated. It matters if it upsets you and angers you or frustrates you or disappoints you or devastates you. They're equally important. So it feels like us helping a generation understand how to build that emotional muscle and be able to connect to ourselves, build the invisible bridges within us and between us.
Mhm.
We need that data and we need the strength of that muscle. And we don't want it to just be the good part of it, the feel good part of it. We want it to be how well you can navigate this landscape of your heart will determine how quickly you find your purpose, how deep and meaningful your relationships are, how meaningful and connected you are in this life.
I think that's a wonderful gift to give to our, our children, our younger generation. This idea. There's a guy named Jocko, and he's a motivational speaker as well, and he had a podcast with a guy, and he said one of his men, he's an ex-military. He said one of his men came to him and he said, "Man, I got this really tough situation at work, and it's not fair, and I'm really having a hard time." And he said to the guy, he said, "Good, good.
Mm.
And what are you going to do with that? And how can I encourage you? How can I support you?" The idea that you're in the trenches, it's a little muddy and mucky down there, and it's not easy, but good. And he said, it kind of caught the guy off guard, but it kind of reframed some things of the power in me or powered by me, that what can I do in this situation? And what you're
Yeah.
describing is, we want our kids to be competent. We want
Mhm.
our kids to have a confidence in themselves. And the biggest psychological failure that we had was we for a little while told kids that, you're worth it and you're good, and tell yourself that in the mirror. It doesn't work. And it robs them of the benefits of healthy adversity, not cruelty or those kinds of, but healthy adversity where they get to grow,
Yeah,
lifting the
but
right
that's
kind of,
because we feel so uncomfortable. If we can alleviate the fact that someone is struggling and having a hard time making a living, we don't let them struggle a little bit, try to come up with their own solutions.
yeah,
What we do is we keep alleviating that as
mhm,
our reflex so that we don't have to feel, we don't want to see the people we love in discomfort either. So it's always, how do we relate to the people
that's
we
right.
love's
That's
discomfort?
right. Yeah, that's
And
right. That's
how
really, yeah, it's a great point, because what you're talking about, in those moments that they're struggling, I get anxious. In order to reduce my anxiety, it's really not even to help them. It's to get them out of that emotional place so that I don't have to deal with my anxiety because you're upset. And I see
Yes,
that
we have
all
to
the time.
distinguish that. We really have to be aware of the intention underneath
Yeah.
our actions.
Yes.
And
And
if
I see
it's
that,
so
and,
yeah.
and, and I see that being applicable to parents, to CEOs, to managers, to supervisors, where they sit with the good. Well, what are we in? How are we going to get through this? What are your thoughts? Help me understand how you think you might go through this. Well, that sounds good enough. Let's try it. Let's go
Well,
experiment with it.
let's add that then to your C's. You said competent, you said confidence.
Mhm.
I would add curiosity,
Nice.
passion, and comfy with discomfort.
Yeah. Well, you just
So
got something
those would
right
be
there.
the real big the big, toolkit
Yeah.
that they have empathy for themselves, the
Yeah.
compassion for themselves and for each other, that
Yeah.
they some level. Resilience to me is really who are you in disappointment when things go unexpectedly, when not as planned?
Yeah.
Are you able to be comfort and get comfy with discomfort, and how much?
So
Right?
let's talk about something here then. So you're saying, let's get, I like the C's. Let's get comfy with discomfort. Basically, is having enough emotional muscle to manage a difficult time with almost a 10,000-foot view that says, this really sucks, but I'm going to be okay. I just got to get through this time. I got to manage this and bind my disbelief or my fears or my struggle long enough to do right things repeatedly, so that I can then develop a competence and maybe a confidence in something here, that because I've got to earn competence. I can't be given, I got to earn it. And I don't want anybody to rob me from the work that I've got to do to be confident. But you're talking in here about, what are some of the ways that you have encouraged people to self-soothe kind of then to build that emotional muscle when they're really inside going, holy mackerel, this is hard, or I want to avoid or do what I've always done to get away from this. How do you encourage that?
All right, we're going to go back to me, we world,
All right.
because the question you're asking, people like to simplify it and dumb it down, but it's all connected. So I would start with number one, the data of you being a soul in your body. Yes, you pick up what you see, hear, taste, touch, smell, perception, proprioception, all these ways that we gather data externally. But the most important data that getting comfy with discomfort starts with is internal data, my own physiology, my heart racing, my stomach turning, my throat constricting, my jaw tightening, my back pain, my migraines, my sweating, my whatever it is. The number one thing to do inside me, of me, we world, is deciphering the unique language of your body, your
Mm.
body's physical signals. For me, I will give you one that was a hard won lesson. In medical school, I did not have throat cancer, despite feeling like I could not breathe and that I was sure a mass was in my neck. After being scoped twice under anesthesia, what I realized was this was globus hystericus, AKA my stress response when I'm not speaking my truth.
Wow. Great catch.
So, me understanding that my throat constricts and my stomach turns when I'm holding back and don't feel able to speak my truth is something only I can decipher to get comfy with discomfort. So now, when that happens in a setting, in a room, in a
Yes.
meeting, whatever it is, I have compassion for myself and I get curious. Like, huh,
Right.
thank you, body, dear friend, familiar sensation. What is it that I'm holding back on? And now I breathe into that discomfort. So I have to have ways in which I manage that, which is the whole mindfulness wave that went through corporate America, right? How do I self manage? And then it's about how do I have empathy and compassion for others? How do I then communicate what my needs are? Because I still have to know who I am. Now we're moving out there. The moment I take a step out and get out of my comfort zone and start doing that in other arenas, I build confidence. Because confidence is
Yes.
not always doing it right. Confidence is about being willing to take the step forward, right? And so then I develop competence, and people will revere me when I have a deep or a wide level of competence in a certain area. And the more I can do that, step out of my comfort zone, learn, grow, view it not as a failure, but as a learning opportunity, another lesson in life school. When I lose money, I'm an entrepreneur. Okay. Nothing in my world until 5 years ago taught me about business. So when I lose money, this is how I got through it. Well, now, I guess that's your MBA on the ground since you didn't pay for one in school. How much tuition would you like to pay to learning that lesson in life
so
school,
good.
business school?
That's
And
good.
if I get the lesson quickly and I learned from it, it was a low tuition course. And if I want to learn it over and over again because I'm too afraid to have conflict and I don't really set expectations up front with my consultants and XYZ, I'm going to be paying more and I'm going to be learning the lesson over and over and over again. And if we're going to be learning lessons in life school until we're done, wouldn't you rather, to create an interesting life, be learning different lessons in life school, or would you like to keep learning the same one?
You've done a nice job of just doing a huge reframe right here around these symptoms that we can measure, whether it's sweating or a kind of a constricted, breathing area, or people feel butterflies. These are what you've reframed them as kind of almost early warning symptoms or early warning signs that are indicating something that we don't have to be afraid of. That instead we get to say, hey, thank you for this. What's going on? Let me pause. I'm recognizing this, not to be afraid of it. It's just a knock, knock, knock of our body saying there's something here that you're not doing, that you probably need to do, that these symptoms, and oftentimes are even located in areas where we almost analytically get to say, if I got tight shoulders on my back, maybe I'm carrying too much in the world right now, or maybe my throat, maybe I'm not speaking up in certain ways. That's kind of curious to watch some of where things manifest. But the idea is you reframed it as this is something that's just an early warning system that indicates something to us that we get to say, hey, welcome. What do I need to do now? Let me soothe. What do I need to do?
That's how you become
What a
powered
great-
by me.
Yeah,
You
exactly.
you have to
Exactly.
unhook from the patterns of your biology that at one point in your life kept you safe
Yeah. Right.
and are now holding you back. So you've
Literally
outgrown.
restrictive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so good. Hey, Neha, you and I probably go on back and forth all day today. This is so much fun to ping back and forth, but I know we're kind of winding down here today. As we kind of come to a close, let's whittle some things down. And if you'd like maybe our listeners to have a takeaway from our time today, there's so many pieces to this, and we're going to have you back. It's just so much fun to talk with you and just kind of get your insight and your perspective on things and all that you're teaching folks and modeling at the same time. But if you were to leave our listeners with a kind of a takeaway today, what would you want it to be in terms of this powered by me philosophy?
I want them to know that there are many issues in our world that seem like they can't be solved,
Mm,
but they can. They can be solved, but what it requires, and this is how I've come to teaching people how to lean into healthy conflict, communicate more effectively. Basically, I'm an engineer who, instead of building bridges out in the world, physical bridges, has committed myself to building the bridges within us, from our head to our heart, to our body, to our spirit. So I build invisible bridges within us and between us.
mm,
So I'm the engineer that does that. I'm also the doctor. When someone asks me, like, what type of a doctor are you? Rather than saying internal medicine, I say, I perform heart surgery without a knife,
nice.
because it's really about these problems cannot be solved when we only look at them from simplistic perspectives or only the physical realm.
Mhm.
We need to sit at the intersection of disciplines that we didn't even think go together.
Yeah.
And the solutions are there and they're able to be found. But when you're not getting the answers that you need or want, or don't feel like what you're getting is satisfactory, you don't have to be on all sorts of medications like potentially migraines, depression, anxiety. All these things they're bridges.
Mm,
They're bridges to help you through a crisis and a tough time. But the real question is, once you do that, do you have a parallel path,
mm,
which is saying to you, what's underneath this and how can I solve this problem? Because this will temporarily soothe it,
yeah.
band-aid it, get you through a crisis. But I want to know, where's the parallel path that's going to help you heal this? And so I want them to know that my version of this for burnout, for moving too fast and feeling a mismatch of energy within you and then out in the world, is powered by me. And it's one way that they can see how all those disciplines come together.
Yeah. Outstanding. What a great takeaway message. I would love our folks that are listening to find out more about you after our show today. Give us a way for them to contact you and learn more about your book.
Oh, I would love that. IntuitiveIntelligenceInc.com is the website where they can get what they need, or nehasangwan.com.
Perfect.
That, and then on that, you just go to books and you will be able to get this. They can get the book or the audiobook on TalkerX, which is on how to lean into healthy conflict. They can get that on Amazon, Audible, wherever it's found.
Fantastic. What a lot of fun today it's been to be back with you. And thank you so much for being back with us. I so enjoy our time and I so appreciate you being here today. Thank you so much, Neha.
You are so welcome.
Thank you. Also want to thank you, our listeners, for dropping by and joining Neha and me today. It's always great to have you with us. Regarding this episode, I want to remind you that it and its resources and all of our other episodes can be found at our webpage at triadhq.com/BHT. Thanks again for being with us on the show. And we'll look forward to having you back with us next time on Behavioral Health Today.
We appreciate all the support from our community, and if you like our show, one of the best ways you can support it is by giving us a 5-star rating and leaving a review. Behavioral Health Today is a podcast part of the Triad Behavioral Health Network, all rights reserved.